Today we're going to talk about solving inequalities using addition or subtraction. In the same video, we're also going to do the next section, which is solving inequalities with multiplication and division. So remember, the method of solving these inequalities is very similar to what we do with the equations. So we're still going to be using our inverse operations to do any one-step inequalities. Once we get to multi-steps, we're then still using the idea of the SAD-MEG and working in our opposite order of operations. So just quick examples of a couple. So in this first one, we're solving the inequality and then graphing the solution. So just like it was an equation, treat this like it was an equal sign and just bring down the symbol for the moment. We see minus 6, so we do the inverse of adding 6. X is greater than or equal to negative 4. Then remember, what we're going to do is on our number line, we only need to draw 3 points. The middle, which is our solution, the negative 4. The arrow is right on the line. It's a closed circle because of the or equal to, and greater than means that it's heading to the right as we are getting greater on the number line. The second one. So when we are solving this one, and this is one we got to kind of gets a little bit more complicated on these next couple of examples. This one, for letter A, we are subtracting 8. We get the less than or equal to. Just remember the less than would be going off to the left. So on this one, notice that the variable is on the right-hand side, but we still treat it like it was an equal sign, so I'm going to subtract the negative 1.4 on both sides to get m. And then we have this less than sign. But in reality, remember the m, when it comes over to the left, when I make that switch over here, then I have to reverse the sign as much as I had to reverse the m and the negative 9.4. So really, this symbol was opening up to the m, so when I bring it over, unlike the equal sign, I have to still flip the symbol inside to now make an m is greater than negative 9.4. Important to notice that when that happens, obviously the arrow, it's still going to be an open circle, but the arrow is not going to be going to the right, versus if you left it, you might be tricked to go to the left. So be careful on one like this where the variable is on the right-hand side. Then we have like a word problem that we just kind of look through here. We want to write and solve the inequality. We're looking at how the circuit overloads at 1800 watts of electricity. So we're going to use maybe the X to be our number of watts we can have without overloading the circuit. So the 1100 is what the microwave uses, plus some amount that has to be less than 1800. Because it's saying up here that at 1800 it will overload. So that's why it's the less than, not the or equal to symbol. And then when I solve it, I get X is less than the 700. So then when we talk about down below the second one, which of the following appliances could you plug in? Well, since we know that we could use up to 700, I want to look at the ones that would make it work. So obviously these two down here are too large. They have too much wattage on them to make it work. The 300 and the 50 would work. So the clock radio and the blender would still be okay. So next we want to talk about solving inequalities with multiplication and division. So again, very similar to when we were solving a one-step equation. There is a difference though on these versus with the additions and subtractions. So when I'm solving one of these, I'm still going to do the x divided by 8. We multiply by 8 to get x is greater than the negative 40. We open circle, we go off to the right. We still would do this over here. We would divide by 3 to get x is less than, we have to reverse that symbol when we bring it over to the left, the negative 8. But then we have this situation here that we have to really pay close attention to. Anytime you are multiplying or dividing by a negative number with the inequalities, you also must reverse the inequality. Now, what that does mean is only when you are dividing or multiplying by a negative. So just because, for example, back up here, we got an answer that's negative, we didn't reverse any symbol. We only reversed this one because we spun the x from the right to the left. Just because our answer was negative, we didn't reverse the symbol. This only happens when I multiply, like in this example A, I am multiplying by a negative 3. So not only do I multiply both sides by a negative 3 to get the negative 6 on the y, I'm also reversing the symbol to make it a greater than. And in this example, because it's on the right, I'm reversing it again, so I'm right back where I started. So I'm really reversing it twice. And then it becomes the less than with the open circle. The same thing here. Because I'm dividing by a negative 7, that's why I'm reversing the symbol. It has nothing to do with my answer being a positive or negative. It's only when I am doing the act of dividing or multiplying by a negative. So that's what this kind of big key note is saying. Reverse the inequality if you multiply or divide by a negative. Okay? Then modeling the mathematics again, we are earning $9.50 per hour, which is obviously a lot lower than the current wage, but that's what it was in this problem. We want to write an inequality that represents the hours you need to work to buy the digital camera that costs $247. So, to make the exact 247, that would be represented by the equals. But you also could make more than 247, so we want to create this inequality that would be 247 or more. Okay? So 950 for the hours times x, which is the number of hours, would be greater than or equal to 247. So if I divide by the 9.5, I'm going to get x is greater than 26. So you need to work at least 26 hours to buy the camera. Obviously, if you worked more, then you would be able to earn more. This last graph, chart, list, is just trying to show some highlights to these first three sections. Remember, we always want to bring our variables over to the left. Anytime you finish your problem, make sure that you have the variable on the left. It will, number one, make more sense when somebody's asking you the answer. Makes more sense to say x is less than 3 than 3 is greater than x. And also, when we're doing our graphs, it'll make more sense on how you're going to show the graph, because that inequality symbol kind of points in the direction of your bold arrow. Secondly, remember, it's open circle is always for these symbols, the greater than or the less than. The closed circles are when we have the greater than or equal to, or the less than or equal to. Graphing on number line, remember we need at least 3 points. A nice bold line on the number line, not above it, right on it, making sure that we are showing the direction very clearly and we can see the difference between the two things. And then lastly, we talked on this reversing the inequality symbol anytime you multiply or divide by a negative. Not just because the answer is negative, but because you are multiplying or dividing by a negative. And I guess the last thing, we haven't really talked about this too much in this first few sections. You can always check your solution just to make sure your arrow makes sense. You can maybe use the number 0. Might be an easy one to kind of check, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to take any number within your bold arrow to kind of plug it in to see that it works. And if it does work, chances are you probably have the right direction. So I hope this helps. Hope you do well with these sections, and we can take any questions that you have when I see you in class.